Hello and welcome to pokerstrategy.com, your professional poker school. No Limit Hold'em. This variant of poker that poses unique challenges on your abilities and knowledge. It requires good technical knowledge and an instinct for the right moment, and sometimes you simply need to bite the bullet and do the right thing. This and the following videos show you a strategy with which you can play in the so-called full ring variant of No Limit Hold'em. 7 to 10 players on the table and win. You will learn how important bankroll management is in order to be a long-term winning player, with what strategies you can beat the smaller and middle limits, what cards to play and when, and how you evaluate the strength of your hands in later betting rounds. The subsequent videos in this series are about the mathematics of playing poker and how to play in various situations, but more on that later. Right now, you're going to get an introduction into the big stack strategy, also known as BSS. What is bankroll management? Thanks to the proliferation of online poker platforms, a whole new type of poker player has come into view. They are mostly young people from all corners of the world who came from nothing and slowly worked their way up the limits in a relatively short period of time. What took other players half a lifetime to achieve has taken these players at the most 2 to 3 years. A successful career in poker, however, requires a whole new set of qualities in the players themselves. You can't just be a good player, you also need to be a good manager, your own manager. See the money that you bring to the table as an investment, just the same as if you were buying shares in the stock market. If you were to buy shares, you would only buy ones that promise a good return and the risk of loss is low. Bankroll management helps you to do this in poker. It tells you in what limits you should invest and how much you should play in order to get a good balance between your desire to progress as fast as possible and get as much money as possible. To not fall too far behind when you lose and bounce back quickly because you didn't lose large amounts. When you do win, you want to win a lot. But when you lose, you don't want to be too badly affected. You can achieve this by maintaining a 25 buy-in bankroll management. The bankroll management for the big stack strategy looks like this. You always buy in with a full stack, 100 big blinds on any table. 100 big blinds equal 1 buy-in. If you have 25 buy-ins of the next higher limit, you can move up into that limit if you wish. If you only have 25 buy-ins for the next lower limit, you must move down. If you've bought into a game without thinking about bankroll management, you will be an easy target. The players on the higher limits are just waiting for players like you. Without a solid bankroll management, not only you can't win, nobody can. Even the best players in the world go broke when they don't stick to a good bankroll management. Sure, you start out small, but the first Apple computer was built in a garage. Bill Gates wrote his first program not on a computer, but with a pen and paper. You play and you gain experience. You build your balance up, and when you've won enough, you climb to the next level, then the next, and so on. How do you win in No Limit Hold'em? The title of this section could also be How do you win money with poker? Lots of heads have been broken over that one, until David Slansky, professional player and author of several standard works on poker theory, found a solution. In his book Theory of Poker, he undertook a small thought-out experiment in which 2 players play poker, but all cards are open and face up. Both players knew what cards the other had and could calculate all probabilities perfectly and play optimally. Slansky said that ultimately you can only make profit long-term when the other player moves away from this optimized play and makes a mistake. Similarly, in the long term, you only lose money when you move away from your optimal game and start making mistakes. Your profits come from mistakes your opponents make, their profits come from your mistakes. Slansky named this basic principle the fundamental theorem of poker, and it will hold true for as long as you play poker. It's not your cards, it's not your opponents. It doesn't matter if you're playing a low or a higher limit, or find yourself one day in Las Vegas on the final table of the World Series of Poker. The way to success is always this: make as few mistakes as possible and make as much money as you can from the mistakes of your opponents. So, if you want to know how to make a profit in No Limit Hold'em, then take a look and see what mistakes other players are making. On lower limits, and also up to the tables of $100 stacks, the biggest mistakes most players make are these. They play too many and often weak starting hands. They play too passively. They have a hard time separating themselves from their cards and pay too much, for example, speculative hands. They bluff too much, and at the wrong time. They inflate a large pot with a pure bluff. They don't take their table position into consideration. They don't practice good bankroll management, and their play is dictated by anxiety about their money. In order to take advantage of these frequently occurring mistakes and get maximum profit from the pot, you must simply do the opposite. You only play selected strong starting hands. You play in aggressively. You don't have a problem folding immediately if the situation turns unprofitable. You don't cling to your cards. You seldom bluff, and then only in appropriate situations. You don't bluff on large pots. You make sure your play matches your position on the table. You practice good bankroll management and can make a move in the game because you know it's the right one, and don't concern yourself with the fact that you will still lose sometimes. The tight aggressive playing style. Of the points mentioned here, 3 are especially important, as they form the building blocks for the so-called tight aggressive play style, which is the perfect response to the frequently occurring mistakes in the lower to middle limits. You play tight, aggressive, and in position. You play tight. Tight means that you don't play everything that is dealt. There are a number of cards that look weak and actually are weak, but there are also cards that look good but really are not playable in certain situations. One example being King Jack. After the flop, you don't have to grab onto every pair. Knowing when you're beaten or the costs for staying in the hand are too high can save you lots of money down the line. You play aggressive. There is a simple rule for Texas Hold'em. You don't want to be the one who calls the bets of others but doesn't bet or raise himself. You have already learned that your poker profits come from your opponent's mistakes. When do people make mistakes? When they have to make important decisions under pressure. In Texas Hold'em, you make a lot more money when you constantly force your opponents to make decisions, put them under pressure, and force them into making errors. You can do this with an aggressive playing style. At the same time, you save a lot of money when you can avoid situations when someone else is forcing you to make a decision. Whenever someone puts you on the defensive, you should feel uncomfortable. Cold calling, i.e. the calling of opponents' raises before the flop, is for instance almost a sin. With very few exceptions, it can only lead you into situations which are hard to control. One is when you are forced to hit a strong hand, and this rarely happens. You play in position. Poker legend Doyle Brunson once wrote, "Position is everything in Texas Hold'em. It is tedious and dangerous to want to win money when you're not in a position that gives you an advantage over your opponents." What does this mean? When you're seated after your opponents in the betting round, you have position on them, or you are in position. If they are positioned after you, then they are in position. If they're seated before you, you can see what moves they are making. This gives you an information advantage in a game where information is highly in demand but short in supply. Additionally, being in position lets you make more profitable moves. Your life as a poker player will be easier and more successful if you always keep position in mind. If you want to get somebody's money, make sure you have position on them. So in summary, perhaps not everything in this video is new for you, but being reminded of the points touched upon here can only be a good thing. How important your bankroll management is, for instance, as well as the importance of using the tight aggressive play style. As you climb up the limits, you will get even more independent in your playing style. However, the basics you've learned here will remain the same, as will the concepts you are yet to learn. In the next video, you will learn what it means to play in position, and when and with what cards you should enter the game. The team at PokerStrategy wish you lots of luck at the tables.